Hello and welcome back to AIBC Summit YouTube channel. This episode is dedicated to the Bitcoin halving, the huge event in every crypto enthusiast calendar. And joining me to discuss this is Anthony Pompliano, co-founder of Morgan Creek Digital and also content creator at the Pomp Letter. Hi Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Very, very welcome. And I wanted to touch on this because this has been huge news at the moment. I think everyone is super excited. There's a huge bullish momentum. But I wanted to get your opinion. So typically surrounding each Bitcoin halving, there is kind of an unpredictable short-term price movement. This halving has been something which has been particularly interesting because we've seen COVID-19, this huge economic impact. What would you say to retail investors when it comes to a strategy for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think, one, it's important just to understand what's going to happen. Obviously, the halving, reducing that daily incoming supply by 50% is a supply shock that historically has led to a pretty significant price increase over the following 18 months, give or take. And so, we generally think that that's going to happen here again. But one, we need to make sure that the halving actually occurs. So the code executes. Two is there's going to be a lot of volatility before and after. That volatility doesn't necessarily mean that value is changing. It's just the price is changing and people are trying to reprice something or price discovery. And so I don't really care so much about does the price go up, does it go down, does it go sideways in the short term. I take a pretty long-term view on a lot of this stuff. But obviously, when you do have moments like this that some portion of investors understand, some other portion don't, there's going to be some arbitrage, there's going to be some price volatility there. And so really, it's just educate yourself. I think it's the key piece. And then if you're a long-term holder like I am, it doesn't really matter. Right, as long as it actually executes and happens, it should be almost a non-event in the sense of it's not like the halving's going to occur and Bitcoin's going to 10x in price or 3x in price. I actually think that it'll be pretty boring for most people if they have that long-term horizon.
And I think you're right in saying that one of the most interesting aspects of the halving is actually the new approach and the new wave of interest that we're going to see as well, because even cryptocurrency exchanges have been speaking out about large volumes of new users that they have onboarding. And we have to touch on the risk here that are for new retail investors. This is a huge time of economic uncertainty anyway. And in your newsletter, you've mentioned that more than 30 million Americans have lost their jobs. So as the average American right now, where would be the best place to put your money?
Yeah, look, obviously I kind of shy away from giving it financial advice, but the way that I think about this is whenever there's liquidity crisis or liquidity trap, the dollar is king, right? And what I mean by that is you're in a deflationary environment, asset prices will sell off, people want dollars, they want that stability, safety, and so we've seen that happen. On top of that, what you then will get is the government response of tons of quantitative easing, which we now have started to see, over $2 trillion printed. And so what then transpires after that government action is the fear of inflation. Whether it actually happens or not is almost a moot point. It's the fact that people think it could happen, and therefore they run for inflation hedge assets. So they run to things like gold, Bitcoin, real estate, other assets. And so we saw this in 2008, 2009. Gold went down about 30% over the summer of '08 during the liquidity crisis. It then went up 200% over the ensuing kind of 2 years and it hit an all-time high as people look for that inflation hedge asset. I think very similarly, we'll see something like that here. I think Bitcoin will be the outperformer across all asset classes. And the other piece too is, I am obviously a investor and user of something like a BlockFi, but I do think that it's interesting in a time where the stock market has gone down a double-digit percentage. If you've taken some small portion of whether it's your cash position and use digital dollars, or you take Bitcoin or Ether and you put into these interest-bearing accounts. Again, don't do it with everything you got, but some small portion of it. I do think that it's interesting where you can earn up to 8.6% APY because you're essentially you're taking risks. That's where you're getting the return. But in an environment where kind of the largest asset class stocks have actually gone down, people who are in those types of engagements, whether it's with BlockFi or somebody else, that they're earning a pretty nice rate of return there. And so that's kind of the one idea that I've been sharing with a lot of institutions of something that they should consider, given that there's just still high rates of interest in those interest-bearing accounts.
I think what's interesting as well is when we look at, in the past 8 weeks alone, performance of stocks and also commodities. Oil was a huge talking point just a few weeks ago. Were you surprised at any of the movements that we saw, particularly Bitcoin's durability and how Bitcoin managed to kind of regain some price momentum, but also the impact on the stock markets and then the bounce back as well? How have you viewed the past 8 weeks?
Yeah, so I mean, look, there was two, major things that stick out in my mind. The first is we saw a 50% drop in a matter of hours, on that kind of Black Thursday. And I don't care who you are, I got probably some of the strongest hands out there, and my gut is just like, what is going on, right? And there's always that fear of, this thing's only 11 years old, is it going to zero, right? I'm kind of been pretty public about the idea that like I'm going to ride it to zero if that's where we're going, because I just have this long-term belief. But I don't think that there's very many people who felt good about it. The good news is that we've seen this before. We've actually had big drawdowns before. And so when you look at the data, pretty much none of the strong hands sold. Anyone who's been holding for a long period of time, they're kind of hardened to this, and they're somewhat prepared or desensitized to it. So I think that was one big moment. And it was good to see that pretty much everything that was sold during that 50% drawdown had moved in the last 12 months or so. So it was probably more speculators, traders, Wall Street firms, things like that. The second key piece is after that happened, I think it ended that day down like 35% or so. It has rallied. Bitcoin is the best performing asset this year to date. Now, year to date is somewhat of an arbitrary timeline. You could pick the last 6 months, 12 months, whatever you want, but year to date, Bitcoin has outperformed gold, stocks, and everything else. And so some of that is probably speculation around the halving. Some of that is the macro backdrop. And then some of that is just naturally more and more people start to want and learn about a fixed asset. And so I think that trend will continue to happen. Obviously, the big thing on the horizon is, in about a week here, we're going to get a 50% reduction in the daily incoming supply. And so if you have a demand shock and a supply shock happening at the same time, I think it's really, really bullish for Bitcoin.
And there was a tweet that was made by Peter Schiff a few days ago, and you did respond to it. And it was saying that Bitcoin bugs are kind of tooting that Bitcoin's slight year-to-date outperformance over gold is a sign of Bitcoin's superiority to gold. And with the halving in just 6 days, Bitcoin's year-to-date gains can fade fast. And I want to get your opinion on the statement that he made and also how you responded.
Yeah, I mean, look, Peter and I think he likes me. I like him a lot. We actually joke around quite a bit. And look, I know what his shtick is. He knows what mine is. My whole thing with him is he's talking his book, which is fine. And he's not wrong that, of course, the price could go down, but the price could also go up, or it could go sideways, right? It's kind of like, licking your finger and sticking it in the wind and trying to figure things out. Well, that's why people are actually betting in the market. And so my response was basically, short it then, right? If you think it's going down, short it. And really just getting at the fact of he likes to tweet a lot, like many of us do, but get some skin in the game. He's actually long Bitcoin. He didn't own a lot of it, but I think he owns a couple $1,000s worth of Bitcoin. So he's definitely not shorting it, and he's not selling the Bitcoin he owns. But he's good in my book, and I enjoy kind of going back and forth with him online. And he's super smart. Like the key thing about Peter Schiff, I think everyone in the Bitcoin community loves to give him a hard time, but Peter's been right about 80-90% of the stuff he talks about. Like, he's been right about the legacy financial system. He's been right about the global financial crisis. He's been right about a lot of the issues that people are experiencing now and what has led to a lot of the kind of structural breakdowns. The one thing that I think he's missing is Bitcoin, but to go 80 or 90% accuracy on such a complex thing like the financial system on a global basis, he's doing all right for himself.
And we also reached out to some of our followers on Twitter and asked kind of what if they could ask you anything, what would they ask you? Because it is such an uncertain time. People are looking to people like yourself that do provide content, what kind of things and how they should move forward. We did get one question which was really interesting, and it was asking you, how are lawmakers, specifically ones in the US, reacting to the rise of Bitcoin in pandemics like COVID-19? And do any of them have a positive roadmap for cryptocurrency in the future? Because we have experienced Bitcoin actually outperform almost every asset. So how is there been any movements that you've been able to acknowledge? And what's your take on the question?
Yeah, so let's start outside the U.S. I think the big one was Iran recently approved a Bitcoin mining operation. It's a little unclear if this is the first one or they've done others and we just don't know about them. But obviously, having a nation state start to participate in mining, there's other nation states around the world that we're pretty sure are doing it. They tend to be more of the fringe or less popular nation states on a global basis, and they're really doing it out of necessity because they can just use computing power to drive revenue. And so I think that's one key piece is watching nation states do two things. One is take national resources and deploy them to actually participate in the network or use computing power. The second is if they start to actually buy up something like Bitcoin and put it in their national reserves. So do they start to put it in their central banks and things like that? I don't know of anyone who's done it yet. I'm sure people have thought about it. I know somebody like Venezuela has talked about it, but we'll see if that ever happens. Inside the United States, the short answer is just they don't care. And they shouldn't care. Like, what people in the crypto community forget is like Bitcoin's a $160 billion asset. Like that literally doesn't matter. That's like $20, right, to the global financial system. They got way bigger problems to deal with. They've got 30 million Americans unemployed, 4.8% drop in GDP in the first quarter. You're dealing with billions and billions of dollars of bailouts. Here's a great stat for you. Literally, there was more money put in corporate bailouts than there was in the market cap of crypto. Right. So like to give you a sense, the government just printed multiples more money in a single 6-week period than the entire market cap of crypto. And so it doesn't matter right now. And they're not going to care about it until it matters. And so the price movement of it being up 25, 30% this year, literally you could go and sit and meet with all of these different lawmakers or regulators, and they'll just look at you and be like, so? It just doesn't matter. And so I think that'll change over time. But right now, I think that's what people kind of have to just get a reality check on.
And finally, so we're T-minus 6 days until the Bitcoin halving, which is upcoming. How are you going to spend it? Are you going to celebrate? Are you going to have a countdown like a New Year's Eve kind of vibe? Are you going to have some beers? What are you going to do?
Yeah. My partner, Jason Williams, has convinced me that we're going to live stream this thing and we're going to hang out for a couple of hours. Again, like I said, I think it'll be relatively non-event. I saw somebody tweet on Twitter the other day. They said the beauty of the Bitcoin halving is that the second that it happens, the miners get to work on the next block, right? It's just the system continues to work. But we're going to stream it, and I think we might have a couple Bud Lights, as I like to joke. Bud Lights basically water for the common man. So we'll have a couple of Bud Lights on a live stream, and talk a little bit, maybe get a couple people to call in or something. But that's pretty much it.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the line. It was always great to catch up. Stay safe in New York as well, and we look forward to catching up with you very soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's all from us here. We'd love to hear how you found this segment, how you celebrate in the halving. Share your thoughts in the comments below.